Hello, everybody. It's day 24 of our VLOGMAS Python series. And in the last episode, we looked at the try and then the exception, and we'll be continuing today from that same end. All right, let's first and foremost take out these and then be left with a try and then a general exception. So we attempt this and it executes nothing because print x hasn't got x defined. So it produces an error, but in the place of the error, there's nothing. We just passed. So that means there's nothing. So let's just place in here a print statement and say error detected. Okay. So now if you rerun this, it produces error detected because print x produces sort of a name error. So if I run just this alone, we get to see it produces a name error. All right. Now the next aspect we'll be looking at is the else statement. Now we can add an else to the try and exception. Say, okay, let us move on. That's for the else part. All we are saying is if there's no error produced, okay, execute this part. That's to say, if there's no error produced from this code, then execute the else part. So it means if the try aspect works, then we can also include the else statement. That's to say that, okay, if there's no exception, then produce this. So this wouldn't get produced because X generates an error. Let's intentionally produce, assign a value to X, say X equals to 2, so that print X wouldn't produce an error. In that case, we'll have our 2 printed out, which is from the try aspect, which is print X, it prints the 2, and then the else statement, let us move on. That's because there's no error generated. And then we can have a final aspect termed finally. And what finally does is that whether there's an error or not, this block would be executed. So finally, let's just say print code ended. All right, so we run this, and then we still have the finally aspect executed because, well, the final aspect isn't dependent on whether there's an error being raised or an exception being raised or not. Okay, so now let's intentionally print out y here, knowing well that there's no y. So we don't expect print y to work. That would produce an error. That's why we have a warning signal here saying undefined name y. So we expect that the exception would be produced. That means error detected should be produced because that raises an alarm. Print y raises an alarm. And then the else aspect wouldn't be executed because there's an exception raised. But then the finally aspect would be executed because it's not dependent on what happens within the trial exception. So we have error detected because of the exception part, which is activated, and then code ended because finally is still, as we said, not dependent on whether it's worked or not. Okay, so this comes in handy when you are sort of testing components of your code. It's also useful when you're trying to debug your code and you're breaking it into smaller chunks, and then also for more, active, let's say, huge code execution. I believe you had an amazing session following throughout this part. If you have any question, leave it in the comment section and then the team would address it. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe and then click on the post notification to be informed on any new content we put up. And to our old subscribers, we say thanks for sticking with us, and it's been a great journey so far with you. We trust that you would move further with the programming and then take it higher, and we hope that you would excel in your programming exploits. Do have an amazing day, and then, as we always say, it's always greater at the top. Don't forget to push till you excel. Okay, so that's it. Have a great time, and then a Merry Christmas to you all. Bye-bye.